arcade gamers, and welcome back to Biggie D's Arcade. Today we're going to be talking about Time Crisis and what happened with it. You know, where is it gone? We saw a leak about it, let's see, it was mid last year, so it's been some time since we saw that leak. We know Arcade1up has been working on this cabinet. I'd like to know, when is it coming out? And I wanted to make this video today because I think this may be the next Arcade1up release. I think this is a sure bet, being that they have been working on it for so long and we've already seen a leaked version of the cabinet. So let's get into it. And what I want to start with is I want to start with the original Time Crisis cabinet, because we know this is the design that they've chosen to go with. They could include other Time Crisis games on there, but we think, and we saw from the leak, that they're going to be using the original cabinet design for this Time Crisis cabinet. And I wanted to take a look at this advertisement because it kind of gave us an idea of what we would be getting with the Arcade1up release. And two things that really pointed out in this advertisement were, for one, the pedal feature. This was a new design that we hadn't really seen in shooting cabinets before, and it added a completely different dynamic to this arcade than we had seen before. And what it offered was, if you were to release that pedal, you would be in a defensive position where you would be crouched down and you would be safe from gunfire, able to reload and collect thoughts on what you wanted to do next and what strategy you wanted to take to proceed through the game. Now, when you step on the pedal, that puts you at risk of getting shot, but you're able to see the enemies and take them out at that point. So that would be your attack mode, would be when you're stepping on that pedal. It also offered two different types of games. You could do the story mode, where you could play through this story, get to learn these characters, and eventually beat the game. Or you could do a time attack game, where you're essentially just working on scores, trying to compete through a time attack mode, where you're trying to score the most amount of points in the least amount of time. And that was more of just a competitive way to give it more replay value if you had already beaten the game. And to also give it a little bit of variety, allowing you to change up what you're doing on this arcade cabinet. So let's take a look at the actual design of Time Crisis. And if we look at the design, it was a very big cabinet. It only had one gun. It was a single player game, had a big bright marquee on the top, but a very unique cabinet design with the main character on the side and the Time Crisis logo. And when we saw the leak, we saw that, and it resembled this cabinet in a way, with the colors and the artwork and the logo on the marquee, things of that sort. But the actual design was very skinny, and it looked kind of like a banana, is what many out there had compared it to, just as a joke. And that's when Arcade1up decided that they were going to go back and they were going to rework the design of this cabinet, and they were going to hold off on releasing it in 2022. So they've now been working on it for some time and trying to perfect this design, trying to make it as arcade authentic or accurate as possible, but still being able to do it within the limits of what Arcade1up can do to still ship these and be able to do them with just the regular shipping we get through Best Buy and Walmart and these other retailers. Now, it started getting me thinking too on what other games are they going to include with this. And they, with Fast and the Furious, included two games. They included the first one, and then they included Drift, which came out just a few years later. And I think we're for sure at least getting Time Crisis 1, and we're getting Time Crisis 2. And what Time Crisis 2 had offered was the ability to play co-op, two-player at the same time. So you would have two side by side, and you and a friend or whoever else is in the arcade could play this game together. And that just added another dynamic to this game, and just made it more entertaining, more fun to play. So I think we're for sure at least getting the first and the second two games. And looking at this Time Crisis 2 cabinet, as we can see, it was all one arcade, and I just don't think we're going to be getting that particular design. I do have thoughts on co-op and two-player, And let's get into that. So let's look at the leak. And we see on the leaked cabinet design that it had 2 guns and some things that I think that they're going to rework or going to be those guns. I think we're going to have 1 gun, not 2. And we're going to have the ability to link the cabinets similar to what we saw with the Fast and the Furious. So, you know, if they sell these for $600-700, you would have to then buy another $600 to $700 arcade. You would be able to link them over your network, your home internet network, and then play in co-op mode is what I think is going to be happening with this Time Crisis cabinet. And some other things that I think that they're going to be working on, and what I think we'll be seeing in the final design is going to be an XL version. I don't think they're going to go with this super skinny, super tall, what would look and appear to be our deluxe cabinet design. I think they're going to go with an XL version of this, making it a little bit wider, maybe giving us a 19-inch screen. And just that way it doesn't look so tall and it doesn't look so skinny. And it also would just give us that bigger screen. You know, with shooters, we're always worried, are we going to have enough room on those 17-inch screens to really see that in detail from standing, you know, 5 feet back or 4 feet back? Is it going to be a big enough screen? And I think they can answer that question and address that by making it an XL, including the bigger 19-inch screen, giving it a more wider design. And those 2 things I think could be enough to please us as fans of Arcade1up, and then of course the customers out there that are going to purchase this. Now it also got me thinking as well, is what other games are they going to be including with Time Crisis? I think we're for sure going to at least get those 2, 1 and 2. I think that's a for sure bet. I'm pretty firm on that fact that I think we're at least getting at least 2. But I also wanted to speculate on what other games we could be getting, because we know that in the back of Arcade1up's mind is they always want to try to make these as much like a multi-cade experience as they can, using, you know, and it becomes difficult with the licensing and very expensive for them to do that. But I do think that is in the back of their mind. They want to include as many games as they possibly can, that's reasonable, that they can afford to do, and make work with the developers and get those licensing agreements in place and make it all work and fit in, you know, their budget and what they're capable of doing. So I think what my thought is that they're going to stick with the Time Crisis franchise. You know, you get the most bang for your buck on those licensing deals, I believe, when you just stick with the same franchise. So like, or the same game, for instance. So like, for instance, with Marvel versus Capcom, we got a bunch of those games all on one cabinet, but it was all fighting games for the most part. And that's what I think they can do with Time Crisis. They can include a bunch of games, but make them all Time Crisis games. And but what gets tricky with that is the Time Crisis games that we had spoken about previously, 1 and 2, were released in 95 and then in 97. However, these later Time Crisis games came out much later than that, much more graphically intensive games for the processing power of these PCBs. But I think that's another thing that Arcade1up has addressed. And I had watched Michael B., the Game Genie. I will include a link to his channel and this stream down below in the comment section in the description. So make sure to check there below the video if you want to check this out. But I took just a short, very short clip from there where they had interviewed Travis MCP, who is in direct contact with Arcade1up on future cabinets. And let's hear what he had to say about these PCB issues and the limits they have to doing these higher end games, these more modern type games. And let's hear what he has to say.
Here's the interesting thing. So At Games, as you know, has the 4K versions of everything coming out, which I already told PK, listen, you need to send me one. I'm going to do a video about it and everything. Like, I'm literally going to put a video game thing on my channel because I think it's amazing. That chipset's super powerful. It's substantially more powerful than the most powerful chipset that Arcade1up is currently using. And that means that Arcade1up can start purchasing that in the future for future systems, which means we won't run into this.
So what I'm taking from that is I am taking that Arcade1up has now sourced a new chipset, a new PCB that they're going to be using on future cabinets. This will happen after the Fast and the Furious. So starting on their next release, if it happened to be Time Crisis, that means Time Crisis is going to get this new chipset. It sounds like it is the same or very similar to the AtGames 4K chipset that they're going to be using in their new AtGames products. The AtGames Legends Ultimate 4K and the AtGames Legends Pinball 4K. Arcade1up has sourced something either very similar or the exact same, which we know is a very high-end, can do processing much higher than even like the Raspberry Pis that we've been using over the last several years, and can play some of these more modern titles from the 2000s, maybe even from like 2010s. So let's look at what other possibilities we could get. And what I think is we could possibly get Time Crisis 3 as well. That came out in 2002. We could also be getting Time Crisis 4, which came out in 2006. And what would be a real stretch, but a very real possibility with this new chipset, would be Time Crisis 5. That came out in 2015. And this is a very modern Namco shooting title. Very modern graphics, more similar to what we're experiencing on like our PlayStation 5s and our Xbox Series X's and S's. This is a high-end game that could potentially play on this new PCB, this new chipset. And if they were able to do all 5 and include the entire collection of Time Crisis arcade games on one cabinet, it could be an XL, or maybe it would even deserve the title of a Pro at that point. You get the full collection and you call it the Time Crisis Pro. 19-inch screen, wider design, better buttons, better gun than we saw on T2, things of that sort. So let's take a look here at Time Crisis 5 and some of the gameplay on it. As we can see, it's a very modern title, extremely good graphics, something we have not seen on any cabinet design to date, of course. And we also see that this would be a widescreen game. So are they going to use the 4:3 aspect ratio monitor? Are they going to use that? Or would they then move to a widescreen monitor at this point to run these games? Or would they just put the black bars above and below it? Those are going to be some questions if we get into these more modern games. Or are they going to progress to a widescreen monitor? Or are they going to continue with that 4:3? But all very interesting questions that we still have unanswered, but something that is possible, a real possibility that I wanted to bring up. Now, one other thing we saw, this is a new feature, is that now that Arcade1up has moved away from the more online games after Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and have now more moved to these linkable cabinets in an effort to give us a multiplayer experience without the online capabilities, I think would also work, and is, like I'd mentioned earlier in this video, is probably going to also be included on the Time Crisis cabinet, is the ability to link the cabinets together and purchase a second one, put them side by side, connect them to the same network, and be able to play co-op multiplayer on 2 cabinets, only having 1 gun on each one. So you maybe just have an option to get one with each colored gun, or both cabinets have the same color gun. These are just questions that I'm throwing out there that we still don't know about. But I wanted to discuss these in this video because I think we're very close to seeing the Time Crisis cabinet. And until we get more information, I want to continue to research these things, make content on it, get the discussion going. For you guys out there, if you've watched the video today, put some comments down below on what you think about the cabinet, ideas you may have for it. Because we know, and I know, Arcade1up watches these videos. They watch our comments down below. And these are things that they're going to factor into the design and the implementation of that design on this when they release it. So continue to participate, continue to let them know what you want. And this will be a cabinet that I think is going to be a really good design, really popular cabinet, and a real advancement from what we've seen in previous ones. So hope you guys have a good rest of the week. This is kind of like my midweek video. I will be doing a stream here on Sunday evening. I think I'm going to be sticking with that late time after 19K Fox, doing more of a late night stream, which would start at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, but starting at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So I hope you guys continue to tune in to that, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the video today, and I'll see everyone in the next one. Have a good day. Bye-bye.